Can you read from this far?
I'm going to try. I wear contact lenses, so I should be
Okay.
able to.
I can go get my glasses. But
I can read. Assalamu alaikum. We're just going to wait for some of you to join on. Hello.
okay, there we go.
Okay, so guys are joining now.
Let's just look from this page.
How's everyone's Ramadan going so far? So we're going to wait for a few more people to join just for
It's not even
a minute or so. Salams.
It's not even saying yet that our page is live. Okay,
Are you
yours is
working
live.
off the same Wi-Fi?
Yeah, does it not work? Okay, just want to see what it
If
looks
we work
like.
off the same
It looks
Wi-Fi, it
fine.
might be too much. Yeah.
Okay, that's
Perfect.
fine.
Okay. So we have some questions that you guys sent in. So we wanted to speak a little bit about how to get the best out of your
Yes.
Ramadan. Because you can't just look at something in isolation. Ramadan is about the physical, it's about the spiritual, but it's about the mental and the emotional as well. So we wanted to marry all of those aspects and look at any questions or concerns that you guys have. So we got a few of the questions from you guys, but you're also free. There's not a whole lot of questions. So we'll have time to answer questions on here as well. So if you have any questions, just pop them in the comments below, and then Dr.
Yes.
Baker and myself will try our best to answer them.
And also, if you can't hear us well, please let us know.
Yes.
That we'll just move our phones out
Yes.
in a different position.
Yeah.
So can everyone hear us?
Can we have one person doing a sound check for us, please? Can you hear us?
We will wait for you to say yes.
Maybe we're just talking heads right now, Raisa.
Okay. Well, we hope you can hear us.
Okay, so if you can't
sure
hear
you
us,
can
tell
be
us.
able to
How about
see.
that? Okay, there, Shabna Mohammed says that, okay, she
Okay,
can hear us.
perfect.
That's awesome. Oh, yes, Faiza. Yes, okay, great. Can hear us. Okay.
Okay, so remember, send through your questions if there's something you'd like to know.
Yeah.
We are live on both our pages, so no one's going to miss out.
No.
And we'll save the live so that you can refer to it later on. So maybe let's start with, how has your Ramadan been so far?
You know, to be honest, and I don't know, people are gonna, I don't know if they're gonna like me this, but my Ramadan has been really exceptional, alhamdulillah. I think also, you know, Dr. Baker, I've been doing a lot of detoxing and all
Yes,
of that before Ramadan. So I think my internal is in a pretty good space, which made Ramadan really good this year. Like every year at the beginning, the first couple of days of Ramadan, I had a killer headache. And this year, alhamdulillah, nothing. So I think it really says something about how that detox happens in Ramadan. And if you've done some of it pre-Ramadan, then it makes it easier.
It makes so much of sense because we ran an online detox for 5 days before Ramadan. And we also obviously have patients who will tell us that usually every year when I start fasting, my head is exploding at the end of the first day. I had a patient this morning who said every evening she has to have a huge cup of tea when she opens her fast because she suffers with headaches. And you know, it's so interesting to note that just having a clean bowel or a detoxed gut or doing a gut cleanse will actually help to restore positive bacteria, good bacteria, or feed the good bacteria that's already in your system with the right foods, and you get the right outcomes.
Yeah. So that's a nice one. So how can, I've got a question. How can we better support? Because what I've been doing is I've continued the detox through Ramadan. So no pies and samosas for me.
Yeah.
So I've continued it because, and even though I feel very tempted, the reason that I haven't given in is because I'm feeling so good and I don't want to give that up.
Yeah.
Because you're detoxing throughout the day, right? When you're actually
Yes.
fasting, you're detoxing throughout the day. And then when we assault our systems with all of the gluten and sugar and dairy, that it's like your body has to start again from scratch.
Exactly, and that's when people notice that they're so bloated in Ramadan. So you're fine the whole year, and then come Ramadan and you start blaming things like the halim and all. You're blaming halim, but then have you thought about the milkshake that you're putting
Yes.
into your diet, that the samosas and pies that you weren't eating all year round, you now started to eat? So the interesting thing to note is, and we've spoken a lot about this between the two of us, is the relationship between gut and the mind or the brain. And what happens in the gut with bloating is that the bacteria that you already have, your own gut microbiome, which is there, you're born with it, and the toxic waste that you're putting into your body is now meeting. So when you put things with gluten and sugar and flour into your gut, the bacteria that's there starts to ferment the starch and then produce their own gases. And that is when you develop a little food baby and you're bloated and you feel terrible and you start to have heartburn and belching and flatulence. So treat the gut microbiome from a let's say a physical point of view. But detoxing is not just for the body, it's also for the mind.
Definitely. So I don't know if you guys have noticed, but usually it happens for me a week into the fasting, but this time it happened earlier. You get that clarity of mind.
Yes.
Everything's a lot clearer for you, right? I love that you touched on that. I just want to ask you quickly, because I often hear people say, I can't, we know cruciferous vegetables like cauliflower and broccoli and cabbage are so good for us. And I hear so many people tell me that, but it gives me gas and it gives me bloating. Now, is it about that, or is it about the other foods that we're having that's causing the microbiome to be upset?
So it can be related to some of the cruciferous vegetables, but it's because what type of vegetable are you buying? Are you just buying a head of cauliflower from anywhere? Could be a processed one, it could have GMOs in it, it could be one that's sprayed with pesticides, and this is going to make it worse. That's going to cause more bloating. But also look at what you're eating it with. How did you prepare it? Did you cook that cauliflower down until it was nothing, or the broccoli until it was nothing, or did you steam it for like a minute or stir fry it for a minute? People overcook their vegetables. When you look at broccoli, it should be like a bright green color
and crispy.
Yes, and it should have a crunch. When you eat it, you should taste that crunch. It's like you're eating into a leaf from a tree. It's crunchy. So don't lose that in the preparation. Also, if your gut microbiome is not healthy, then you are going to experience the bloating with the cruciferous vegetables. So we need to detox the gut and also put in the correct nutrients. So one thing I noticed is people are very quick to just purchase a probiotic and think it's okay to take it.
Because we had a question now, should we take a probiotic in the evening?
Yes, so now you can't just take any probiotic. You need to check what's wrong with your gut microbiome. So from my point of view, I would say you need to see a functional medicine practitioner like myself, and there are others who can help you select the appropriate food for your gut microbiome. It's not a probiotic. That's not the food. That's more gut bacteria. If you put it into an unhealthy gut, you're not going to feel any difference.
It's just getting flushed. It's not even getting absorbed
properly. You may not
properly.
feel worse, but you probably won't feel any
It's
difference.
just a waste, basically.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So what would be, so in Ramadan now, like I think people probably don't want to let go of all of their savories and all of their stuff. So how can they implement some of these strategies in a moderate type of way?
Yeah, so we had a question from someone. It was, what are the best foods to eat at iftar?
Yes,
and
as I have anxiety and my body twitches while fasting. I just want to ask, do you have anxiety normally, or are you finding the anxiety is more in Ramadan? What's going? It's Anisa Token asked that question. Okay, so you go ahead and then I'll speak about the anxiety part.
So we know that as human beings, when we take, for example, you're writing an exam. You remember back when you're at university, it was the morning of your final paper and your tummy just was so sore. You felt like you needed to go to the loo all the time. So there's a link between your brain and your gut, because when you're stressed, you're having this irritable bowel symptoms. So isn't there a link between your gut and your brain? If you're putting unhealthy food into your gut, it can cause anxiety. Don't forget that there's a relationship between the gut and the brain in both directions. So certain food groups will actually make it worse and certain food groups will make it better. But now we're so used to eating in this fashion in Ramadan. We know that every Ramadan comes and goes with all the pies, samosas, subs, pizzas, whatever you can think of. But this Ramadan, if you could just maybe hold back on the starchy ones, leave the kebabs and the ones the ones that are like egg-based lagans, that would help you. But if you're going to put in processed and refined carbohydrates, you're going to upset that gut microbiome. It's going to send signals to your brain and make you more anxious. So you can actually treat anxiety 50% just through eating better.
I love that you mentioned that, because I see people, Raisa, I see people with anxiety day in and day out, right? And I always, when they come to me initially and we do the intake forms, the first thing I'm going to ask them is, have you done bloods? What's your diet like? Because you need to first check, do you have any deficiencies? And before you even address the deficiencies, you need to look at gut health.
Exactly.
Because you could be taking all the supplements, but if your gut health is poor, how much of that is being absorbed? Most of it is being lost out.
Definitely.
So if your gut health is poor, first of all, the first component is 80% of your serotonin is created in your blood, in your gut, and your serotonin is your feel-good hormone. So if your gut health is poor, and you've got microbes that are not supporting you from a mental perspective, because depression has been linked to microbiome. There's a whole lot of studies around it. I mean, it's a vast area of research, right? So on the one hand, maybe you're not producing serotonin properly. On the other hand, you're not absorbing nutrients properly, so therefore there are deficiencies. So if you've got deficiencies of certain vitamins and minerals, that in itself will make you feel more down and out, more depressed. So before we even look at any emotional issues, that is one of the components that you need to look at.
And do you know what is the biggest nutrient that I'm finding this Ramadan people are lacking, even though they're taking it? I had a lady tell me the other day she's taking 3 types of magnesium. They are not absorbing magnesium any longer because the gut microbiome is upset. So it's not able to let you absorb it. So you're taking that slow mag or you're taking that magnesium supplement and it's not helping you for cramps. You're still having headaches. You have poor muscle tone. But then if we treat the body in a sense of teaching it how to absorb that magnesium or helping it with the absorption process in the long term by changing certain things in the diet, sometimes we add in supplements as well, they start to absorb their magnesium and their headaches go away. They're no longer constipated. They feel better emotionally. Look at the link between certain food groups and depression. And that's something I wanted to talk about was, depression is so overdiagnosed these days.
Yeah. Everything is. I was speaking to a client, and for some people they see crying and stuff as depression, but everybody cries, everybody is sad, So it's also about, I think we grew up in a society where there's a lack of knowledge of how to process emotions. We don't know how to process emotions. So the minute we have a negative emotion like sadness or grief, we immediately get very judgmental and we have to shut it down. And then that repression and suppression of emotions time after time leads to symptoms like depression. That's one way of looking at it, but it's an important perspective.
And also think about young kids, because this is not only happening to us. What I've noticed is that nowadays, so our great grandparents would get, or grandparents would have diabetes, and now we're noticing that people are getting it when they're in their 40s and 50s. So the older generation, like our parents, 50s and 60s, and then comes the generation that's in their 30s, and what we're finding is now these ones are becoming diabetic earlier. And my youngest patient that is now a type 2, almost a type 2 diabetic, so not born with diabetes, is 4 years old. What does it tell you about their nutrition and their genetics as such? Now, if you had a 4-year-old or say a 12-year-old patient who was exhibiting signs of depression, or who looks depressed, is behaving depressed, is crying all the time, or is just alone and bothered, would you now take that child and say, let's put the child on an antidepressant? When you do that, you stuck a label on that child's head already. For themselves, emotionally and mentally, it's disturbing. But if you simply took the time out to look at this child's lifestyle, look at their diet, and look at their nutritional deficiencies, you can treat that so-called depression without any medication.
Can I jump in there? Because I love that you brought up kids and depression and anxiety, because I almost daily get messages from people saying, I have a child who's 7 or 9 or whatever the age may be, little kids who is, I think, might have anxiety. And the thing that I've, in years of treating people, what I've noticed is that children are not born with anxiety. Children are not born with that. They learn that, and they learn it through their parents. So the first question I will ask is, are you an anxious person? If you are an anxious person, then your child has learned the behavior of anxiety from you, because anxiety is, you have very specific thought patterns, very specific ways of dealing with your life that goes with anxiety. That's what, if you have to dissect anxiety, that's what it is. So first ask yourself, can I work with my own anxiety and overcome that? That is going to help my child, because children role model us. Whatever you do, they're going to do. They're going to pick up. It's not that you sit them down and tell them, listen, be anxious. That's not how they get anxious. No. They watch you responding to situations. They watch you responding to stress, and they learn to respond in stress in the same way. Also, if you are an anxious person and you strive for a level of perfectionism, you are going to project that onto them. Definitely. So every time they get into a little bit of a fix, or they have something that goes a little bit wrong, they see you getting so upset that they feel like, oh, this is something I should be upset about as well. So it becomes a learned behavior. So in terms of there's that, you spoke about lifestyle, but it's also, how are you dealing with situations? What kind of behavior are you modeling to your child?
And how you perceive certain situations. Sometimes the situation isn't as bad as we make it out to be. And sometimes just being female, we can be over dramatic. But we're not saying that what you're doing is wrong. On the other hand, it could also be that you genuinely are perceiving it in the wrong way. And we don't think about this, but simple things like vitamin D deficiency can cause anxiety and depression.
Huge.
So if you're deficient and you're not treating it, or you think you're treating it but you're not absorbing it, then you're like fighting a losing battle.
So somebody asked earlier, they said, so should we do blood tests? Would that be the first starting point, right?
You should. So if you're not sure like what blood test to do, then don't stress about it. We're trying to eliminate the stress here. Come and see us first.
Just start, you know, because you are where you are. So you can just start where you are.
Yes, and then we'll decide which blood test you need. For example, I had a patient this morning, insomnia patient, who had done every possible blood test under the planet, thinking that he's done everything complete. And when we went through the bloods, unfortunately, the ones that I needed for the insomnia were not done. So we had to send the patient to the lab anyway to
So come first to the practitioner.
come first, yes.
Come first. Right. And then they will order the bloods that are right for you. And then you look at that. And so you do a full one. And then you might, after you address that, right, we address gut health as well. Because somebody said, is eating healthy and then taking a probiotic a good idea?
Yeah, well, if you need, I don't take a probiotic. I don't know about Zaahida. Maybe you take.
So I have a history of gut disease, right? Inflammatory bowel disease. So for me, gut health is a very big issue. It's something very, like I said in one of my posts, it's very close to my heart because I know how big a role the gut plays in how you feel overall.
Yeah.
So there was the many years I did take probiotics. Currently, I'm not on one and I'm fine. But you have to read the signals of your body.
Exactly.
It's not a one size fits all approach.
And like you said, you suffered with gut issues in the past. For me, I never had gut issues. I've only had chest issues like asthma, but I don't have it anymore. So I'm not on any medication for that. And surprisingly, it wasn't just through alternate meds. It was also through diet that I don't have asthma anymore. Yeah. And similarly for you, your gut has calmed down because it's no longer irritated.
Yeah, definitely. So, but also for me personally, the gut issues, the emotional aspects play a huge, because I just suffer with anxiety as well. So the anxiety and the gut issues went hand in hand. You can't separate one from the other. You know, the other day somebody asked me, and it's a family member I haven't seen in a long time, and she says, you know, like, how are you with that? Because they remember from the diagnosis I had years ago. And she said, how are you with that? And I said, you know, the first thing I had to do is sort my emotions out. And they were shocked. They were like, your emotions?
Yes.
What do your emotions have to do with your gut?
And very openly you said it. And that's good. You need to be open with yourself and your emotions. Yeah. I can see so many comments.
Yeah, let's go through some of these comments. Somebody said, expat that says, I feel sluggish normally, but subhanAllah, during Ramadan, I feel healthier, sharper. You know what? Let's explain that. Let's go into why we feel sharper. What's the reason for that? And how can we support that even more?
Okay, so I personally feel, I agree with you, I feel better in Ramadan. I could probably exercise more in Ramadan.
And don't you get more done? I feel more productive.
Definitely. Yeah. More time during the day because, okay, so we're not eating that one meal in between, but that is not generally an issue there, right? You not having that meal is part of our Ramadan. That's your intermittent fasting. But intermittent fasting on its own actually helps so much with the way your mind functions and the level of insulin being produced in the body. And when we have an imbalance in insulin, we kind of like then result in an imbalance of estrogen and androgens. And then you get moody and irritable. When your androgens are upset, you feel like you just want to kill someone. So that also brings us to the question, what's the difference between anxiety and depression?
Nice question.
And I find because we're not overloading the system with refined sugars and we don't need so much of insulin, then that imbalance in androgens is not happening and the person is calmer, a lot calmer. Maybe they don't have the energy to fight, but more so that they feel calmer. Anxiety, you'll find the patient has palpitations. It's an actual anxious feeling, to put it simply. Whereas depression is more being low, feeling sad, feeling down. Like
no motivation, lethargy, not wanting to do anything. So I love that this is looking at all of the aspects. It's saying if you have things like anxiety or depression, it's not something you are doomed to live with for the rest of your life. There are ways around it, and there's no one-size-fits-all approach. We're giving you different perspectives. We're giving you all the components, but you have to take that and you have to see what works for you, right? So look, it's everything in health. It's all, we say the word holistic is overused, but it makes a lot of sense, right? Yeah. You have to look at the nutrition. You have to look at the gut health. You have to look at how you're eating. Then you have to look at emotionally. Have you developed strategies to be able to deal? Because you know what? You can have let's also say this. You can have the best diet, a healthy microbiome, and still not cope with your life, still feel anxious and depressed because you haven't learned how to emotionally process things. You haven't learned how to deal with emotions like grief or sadness or anger, and so you just suppress everything. And a lot of it, somebody asked me the other day, she said, in one of my posts I mentioned how childhood affects your affects how you deal with things presently. And it plays a huge role. You know, what you picked up from your role models when you were growing up, everybody had the best of intentions and they did the best that they could. But if they didn't know how to process emotions, and then you learn from them also to just suppress your emotions, then you don't have mechanisms to deal with it. So it's all of that together.
And you know what? The suppression of emotions, you know, you think you're just bottling it all up inside, but the damage it can do physically to your body. If I have to say something really mean to you right now, Zaahida, it would actually elicit a physical response, a chemical response in the body.
Me. I'm hardcore now. But no, it's true.
If I had to smack you, it would elicit the same chemical reaction. Physical pain elicits the same chemical reaction as emotional pain in the body. They're both the same. Definitely. So if you went through something traumatic, you lost somebody dear to you, and you just haven't felt well since then. Yes, you are sad about losing the person, but you haven't dealt with the loss of them. You are going to develop physical symptoms, and we've seen this.
And what about antidepressants being prescribed straight after somebody who has lost their husband or lost their child?
How will you grieve? You will not be able to grieve.
You know, this is what I say. Look, no judgment. I have no judgment against medication. I think in some instances
where
you have to. It's where it's needed. It's
look for the chemical imbalance.
But when somebody has passed away, you should be sad. Yes. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be crying. It's okay to be grieving. It's a normal part of the process of that is how you will heal. So if you take the antidepressants, you suppress that emotion, and guess what? When you come off it, it all comes back up to the surface because you haven't dealt with it.
Yeah, and especially when it comes to women and children, or losing a loved one, maybe your spouse, if you don't deal with it properly, you know, I don't want to say so much about the evidence behind it or the research behind it, but I've seen in cases many a times in conferences as well, where practitioners speak about patients who've lost a loved one or a child and then developing breast or uterine cancers. And you know, there's such a huge link.
There's a huge link between emotions.
You were nurturing that child, and now your child is gone, and all of a sudden you develop years later breast cancer.
And then people tell you get over it and be strong, but you know, strength is actually dealing with your emotions.
Exactly. You can't just block it out and say, I'm not doing anything about it. If you are somebody who gets over those emotions quickly, then yes, but you have to have dealt with it. You, like I would say to myself, is it even worth my time wasting emotions on this person or this thing or this whatever it was? Just leave it and let it be. Somebody else might feel, no, I can't get over it, I'm hurt, I'm upset.
And you need to process that, because everybody's blueprint is different. Everybody's processing style is different. Some people get over it faster, some people take a longer time. There's no right or wrong. It's how you've been created, you know, and the ones that take a bit longer, there's a reason for that. You need to trust in that process as well.
So Halima sent a question.
Yes, she also sent me a message. So Halima, I remember you sent your message and she said we have to answer your question. So please answer Halima's question.
So Halima said, let me just, because I'm a little bit
She said, how do you prevent acid reflux in general, but especially in Ramadan? She's suffering with it currently.
Okay, so what are you eating for iftar and sehri? Acid reflux is generally aggravated by oily foods. So if you're having any fried foods, cut that out. You can try air frying them. The second thing is pies. Doesn't matter whether it's air fried or not. Please don't tell me you're air frying your pies. I have to hold in a laugh.
I my pies. I do. It's easier than switching the oven on.
It is easier, but I mean, it doesn't make any difference if you air fry them or not. So cut down on pastries as well. Again, opt for those savories that are like patta and lagan and fritters and cutlets, things that are not flour based and don't need to be deep fried.
Give us a guideline of how, like, what's the hell? Like, should we have like a treat day in Ramadan, like on a Saturday where we go to town on savories, and for the rest of the week, like, what would you suggest?
No, don't go to town, because you don't always, I mean, you don't always go to town, do you? So maybe just start simple. I allow my patients to eat savories on the eating plan because I'm kind like that. Okay, so if they tell me I can't do without it, I will put it into their eating plan, but in a limited quantity. So if you are eating savories now in Ramadan, just choose one. Don't make a variety, because if there's variety, you're going to have one of each. Even I will have one of each for willpower. Right. Just make one type per day and have one of those. Always prepare a regular meal. If you have acid reflux, remember sometimes spicy food can aggravate it, or it can be that the food is too oily. My suggestion is cook with coconut oil or ghee. Don't use any other cooking oils for cooking because they don't have such great heating temperatures and they lose all their health benefits. And also when it comes to something cooling, look at different types of yogurt that you could introduce, coconut yogurt or maybe a plain yogurt, just to give you that cooling sensation. You shouldn't be having reflux in Ramadan because you're eating less, but it's the type of foods you're putting in at that moment. So one date would be enough, your glass of water, a regular meal, and don't forget to feed the gut microbiome with vegetables.
Yeah.
So that's
how you'd offset it. If you've had a saviour or whatever, make sure you've had a large salad.
Exactly.
Make sure you've had some
like
vegetables.
it says on your eating plan. There was a little comment here from Rashida Patel. I thought it was cute. Let's read it out if I find it. She said, people don't have bad moods because shaitan is locked away.
Well, people still have bad moods, so I'm just wondering about that. Maybe not as bad. But Ramadan is actually a lovely time to reassess. I think a lot of us reflect. But not only is it a way to look at your, because it's so much easier because you're not snacking throughout the day, there's less chance of you falling into bad habits.
Yeah.
So you can be more conscious.
Yeah.
You can choose what you're actually going to have.
Because you're already restricted with time. And I always say to my patients, be good at Sehri, because after Sehri, tough luck, you can't eat anything. It's against the law. So if you're good at Sehri, you set your intention for the day, and then iftar just becomes easier.
Yeah.
I see there's a comment from Shabana on yours.
Shabana says, this makes so much sense. My mum passed away 6 months ago and I haven't dealt with this loss. I definitely can relate. So yeah, giving yourself, I think the number one thing, especially in our society where, when I see people at funerals say like, stop crying, I just, it takes everything in me to not go ahead and tell them something, but you have to respect people's boundaries. But give yourself permission to grieve. Grieving is a healthy part. It's not against your religion in any way. Grieving is a healthy part of processing it. You will have days where you feel better. You will have days where you want to have a good cry. Give yourself permission to do that. The worst thing you can do, the way you end up not processing emotions, is by telling yourself you shouldn't feel them, is by telling yourself there's something wrong with you. Too often when somebody is crying over something, someone tells them they're depressed. Just crying alone does not mean that you are depressed, right? In order for it to be diagnosed depression, there needs to be an actual chemical imbalance of some sort, which can sometimes you can work with also after that to balance out.
But there's no excuse, because even why are you having that chemical imbalance? Clearly you're missing the ingredients to make the chemical. So you put the ingredients in, wouldn't you feel better?
But also, doesn't the emotion hold the chemistry? So every emotion that you have causes a molecular reaction in your body. So your emotions itself have chemical reactions in your body. The thing about emotions like grief and sadness, they just want to be felt. So allowing yourself to have that good cry. Maybe you want to journal and write down things. Maybe this is a time. Ramadan is a lovely time of introspection. So you have that extra time on your prayer mat, on your musalla. Sit and cry and tell Allah, I'm really struggling with this. Like, help me to overcome it. But first and foremost, if I can tell you the most important thing about processing emotion, is allowing yourself to feel it and learning strategies of how to deal with your emotions, right? Which is a lot of what I share. So if you're following my content, you're getting a lot of insight into that. Faiza says, what would you suggest breaking your fast with? What's the best?
So a date, definitely. Every patient's different. Some of our patients, we have to go lactose free or dairy free. Then we don't usually recommend that they do yogurt. But if not, then and they can have yogurt, then we'll suggest that as well. A glass of water, some fruit if you want to. Then go and read your salah, come back, have a bowl of halim. So again, halim has gluten in it. Most halims do have gluten in it. But then again, if you are gluten intolerant, or we've said to you, do not eat gluten because it's affecting your thyroid gland or whatever it was, then you would go for a gluten-free option. So look, in my house, we don't always go gluten-free, but sometimes we can see when the symptoms require it. So yesterday, my son said, I'm sick of eating eggs, mommy, for Sehri. So today I made him gluten-free oats, and he's tired of eating gluten-free oats now. So when we talked about options, we don't want you to eat the same thing every day. So tomorrow, inshallah, I'm going to make banana protein pancakes, and that is with homemade ingredients. I will. So it's not ingredients. There's no like whey protein. I don't have whey protein in my powder. I'm not going to go buy some just to make protein pancakes now. But I can use the eggs that I have in my fridge. I can use the gluten-free oats in my cupboard, and I can use the bananas that are in my fruit bowl to make these. So have adventure in the way you cook and the things that you put on your plate.
Keep it exciting.
Your
Have a
supper
repertoire.
table, I should have lots
have.
of color in there. And I've shared some of the recipes on my page as well, and you can go have a look at those. Wanted to say something about grief. You know, sometimes you really need to grieve, but you also need assistance with it. And Zaahida and I like to use both combination treatments. We like to say, here's a homeopathic remedy that it's for people who have been through grief and trauma of the loss of a loved one. But at the same time, they need some sort of counseling, even if it's self-counseling. And me time becomes so important then. Your me time can be your self-counseling. You just need to give yourself 15 minutes a day away from everything, away from social media, away from other people in your house.
You don't have to put on any pretenses. You don't have to be anything for anybody. You can just be by yourself.
Just take off your shoes, go sit in your garden and be.
Yeah, that's powerful. That's powerful. And you'll be surprised how many people don't make the time for that. Speaking to Allah is the best therapy. It really is the safest place to offload, knowing it won't go anywhere. Yeah, that's true. That's true. However, I will say sometimes you do need somebody to facilitate. It depends where you're at, and it depends what's going on for you. Each person is different. And part of, people often ask me, self-love, self-compassion, part of that is tending to what it is that you need. It's not about self-indulgence, but it's about, everything is an amanat. So your body is an amanat, but at the same time, your emotions and your emotional being and your mental well-being are also an amanat. So are you taking care of them? Also, sometimes, this is a very important one, you want to suppress all of that. What if Allah has given you that so that through the processing of it, wisdom is gained? That is how we evolve. That is how our own level of compassion evolves. That is how our own level of wisdom and insight and tolerance and compassion for other human beings evolve. Is when you do your own internal processing. That is the only, there's no quick route to it. It's when you deal with each little thing that comes your way and you really fully deal with it and you give yourself permission to deal with it. That's how you build what I call emotional resilience. It's like a muscle that you keep building, and as you do that, you're able to deal with more and more as it comes.
And so often we see patients that are like building up these walls around them. I don't know if you see them, but I see them quite often.
And it's protective walls, and it's stuff that they've learned from childhood. So let's give a scenario. There's a little child, Fatima comes along and she's 4 years old and she's devastated because maybe her friend said something bad to her for the day and she's crying. And somebody comes along and says, come now, be a big girl. Crying is not for us. Why are you worried about it? Just, it's not important. There you go. And although that's good advice, at the same time, it's not really helping her because it's invalidating her feelings completely. So now Fatima is in a conundrum because on the one side, she really feels very upset and she needs an outlet and she needs to express it and she actually just wants someone to facilitate her through it. On the other hand, she doesn't want to displease this person who's telling her. She wants their love. She wants their acceptance. Because already she's feeling bad. Now she can't deal with their criticism on top of her feeling bad. So Fatima then, her subconscious mind does something very interesting. It just shuts off. It shuts off and creates a wall and says, okay, when we feel this, we must just pretend like we're okay and we must put up a wall. So the emotion that's felt is just suppressed and squashed.
Exactly.
And this happens over and over and over again. And you see it in people. Sometimes they give you and they say, oh, I made maaf. There is no maaf that happened there. You just put
it under the rug.
Sure, there's a process. You start here. And there's the math where you come to acceptance, but you got to do that in between. You can't just jump. Because sometimes you can, but a lot of times
this poor Fatima is going to grow up, get married to someone, and then she's going to keep getting disappointment all her life, and she's not going to do anything about it. And one day she's finally going to crack. And when we ask
and then she's going to say, I have anxiety and I'm depressed. When really the anxiety and depression is from the years of suppression and those walls being built up. And because of that, she says, I can't connect so deeply with my partner. I can't cry. And also, when my children are upset, I don't know, I just sit there dumbfounded. I don't know how to deal with it. Or I get angry with them when my children are upset. Why? Because I never learned how to process it as a child. Now, I don't know how to facilitate my child. So how would you rather deal with Fatima? Because if you have little children of your own, be with the child then. Are you upset? Just mirror. Are you upset? What's going on? How can I help you? And then slowly, as they start to feel better, then offer them the consoling advice. You don't need to worry about things like that. You're fine. Don't worry about what she said. But you have to give them the space to feel it first, right?
And it's quite difficult for this person to initially, to just, say it's a mother.
Someone says, oh my gosh, I'm Fatima.
We'd love to meet you, Fatima.
She's Shabana, but she's
but what it is that when you know the person, like if it's a parent or a child and a mother that comes in and you find that they're not communicating or the mother's not able to deal with it.
And sorry, I'm just going to quickly interrupt. When you build those walls, you also cause disconnect.
Yeah.
So sometimes, in some instances, you've had a baby, you can't connect with the baby because you're so disconnected from yourself, and then you come in with postnatal depression because you say, I can't connect with my baby, and I'm feeling so horrible about myself and so guilty. Remember, when you create walls, that creates disconnection, and Allah has created us for connection. We are not islands unto ourselves.
Yeah.
So when you create walls, you deprive yourself of one of the most important things.
And now, from a physical point of view, would be so that mom who's had a baby and can't connect. You know, these emotions are things that exist and we feel them. But what do you do then is there something you could take? Should this mom just be taking an antidepressant? We see these moms very often. They come in feeling like they don't want to connect any longer with their family. They just want me time. I just want to go to the gym and have my session. I don't want these children running around me. They feel this way. They feel better when they exercise because their hormone levels have dropped so suddenly after the birth of their baby. They didn't have time to recoup. They're just thrown back into the general life stream of things. And now we need to treat them using something like functional medicine. So combining treatments. So for this mom, we would use something like CPR because she's had a baby. Her hormone levels have dropped. She's got all of the symptoms that she's feeling of sort of postnatal depression. She can't connect with her baby. So this is how we would say, you don't need that antidepressant for this. You can use alternate medicine and counseling together to actually get a better result.
Let's talk about this because this is something somebody asked. Can we ask questions? Yes, Trendsetter, you can ask questions. And the one we want to ask, because a couple of people asked about eating for breastfeeding as well, so we'll get into that. But let's talk about this a little bit. Sometimes you have the trauma, if you've had a traumatic birth experience, and a lot come up, because I think birth can also bring up emotions, repressed emotions. It can bring it up all at once, and that sometimes translates into postnatal depression. But have you seen, because I've seen this, have you seen where years later, because you didn't have time or you weren't in the space to deal with it, then the trauma comes back?
Yes.
Years later, so your child is now 5-6 years old or 3-4 years old, and now that birth trauma is surfacing itself. Tell us about that.
So even as far as menopause, you know, this patient, the physical symptoms that they would exhibit if they've been through this trauma and they couldn't connect with their child on an emotional level is, first we'll see that their menstrual cycle starts to do funny things. Like
so it gets very heavy, or you start skipping it.
Yes, or you start skipping it, or you start spotting. So they'll find there's a brown discharge either before or after their cycle. That is a big indication of CPR. Also physically, pigmentation around the face. They can start developing adult acne, hair loss. Hair loss postpartum needs to be treated correctly. You cannot just take an iron supplement or biotin and think you've solved the problem.
People have that and they think
Although
it's
they're
normal.
healthy, it's good for you, but you need to treat the cause of your hair loss. The cause is you had a baby, you didn't deal with it properly, you couldn't deal with it properly. Or maybe you had a C-section all of a sudden and you planned for a natural birth.
Yeah. And those are all traumas. There can be so many traumas that happen. And sometimes birth trauma brings up trauma from childhood as well. So it's all kind of entangled. I hope that the message that you guys are getting here is that when there are health issues, don't look at it in isolation. When you look at it in isolation, you're just treating a tiny part of it and you're not really getting to the root cause. Health issues can have lots and lots of layers to it.
And this is why we ask so many questions when we see a patient. You don't just come here for weight loss, or you don't just go to Zaahida because you want to talk about one thing. You are a human being from head to toe. You are an entire being. Your health problems may not be diseases, they might be conditions. Conditions are different from diseases. Diseases are maybe bacteria, virus, but a condition is a whole lot of things put in one, and when you're off balance, that's when you develop them. And you know, the funny thing is that people who are stressed, they tend to produce a lot more cortisol. I don't know if you heard this morning, but I said on radio, when men and women are working, men so we
produce more testosterone.
And
they get better with stress. That's so unfair.
And also, both our levels of cortisol are high. Both men and women. They stressed out. They at work. The cortisol levels are high. When they get home from work, when men get home from work, their cortisol levels go
Come down.
When women get home
That's
from
why,
work,
oh, by the way, that's why, ladies, your man wants to go in his man cave. That's why he wants to watch TV. He doesn't want to talk to anyone. The best thing you can do is give him that, maybe even make an agreement, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and then after that you start giving him all your problems. But not before that. He needs that wind down.
But then when women go home from work, their cortisol levels shoot up. Why? We have to cook, we have to clean, we have to do the homework, all of these things. Now, if that patient's cortisol is continuously up, they'll exhibit the signs of depression and stress and anxiety. They'll start to gain weight because their cortisol is up, so their chin and their tummy starts to gain weight. Because the cortisol is up, they become pre-diabetic, insulin resistance, and that could also lead to polycystic ovarian syndrome. Oh my, the list goes on. Then you'll find that the same patient, because has issues with cortisol and PCOS, now develops Hashimoto's thyroiditis or hypothyroidism.
You see how it all... This is the thing. Stuff doesn't happen overnight. Yes. A disease doesn't hit you overnight. Your body gives you signals.
You shouldn't
your
just
body
be saying,
talks to you.
I have an underactive thyroid, and that's why I'm gaining weight or I have pigmentation.
There was a whole thing.
There was a whole process before that. You have to get to the root cause of the problem. If you're sitting on a thumbtack, take out the thumbtack. Do not take a painkiller. Take out the thumbtack. You need to treat the problem, not just the symptoms.
And here's the thing. Have more compassion with yourself. Give time to yourself. A lot of us are busy mothers. We're working women. There's so much that we're juggling, and we put ourselves on the back burner. And so we just keep taking painkillers for the thumbtack. So take the time to actually. So somebody, Ummi A says that her Caesar was a disappointment. She has severe hair falling in chunks.
She didn't know it could be caused.
And she didn't know. And the baby's 6 months.
Yeah.
So you need to address that. Come and see Dr. Rae's side. Like come and see what's going on. Give yourself, if you are not working, nothing else does. If you are not operating well, if you're not feeling well, how are you going to take care of your children? Exactly. How are you going to take care of your business, your spouse? You have to give back to yourself.
And having a baby is such a big thing. Yeah. It is an enormous change on your body. In that
and your mind, especially because you're the first one.
In your few seconds of the baby just coming out, whether it was a natural birth or a C-section, your hormone levels drop immediately. If it was a C-section, this baby was going out in one direction and now suddenly being pulled in the other direction. It has consequences for baby as well. Unfortunately, it doesn't go the natural route for all of us. I haven't had any natural births. Both my births were C-sections. And no matter how much you planned for that natural birth, it didn't happen. It really affected me. With my second baby, I tried for a VBAC. I actually had a ruptured uterus in the end. And shukr, Allah Ta'ala made it in time. We made it in time to theatre. But the trauma that I felt afterward was, it took me 3 months to leave the house. I could not leave the house for 3 months.
And that's okay.
It was fine.
Okay. It's okay. Here's the thing. Sometimes we need to give ourselves allowance. You can't say, Raisa, you didn't leave the house for 1 month. Here's an antidepressant.
Yes. So I had my dad say,
you had 3 months. Your dad tell you.
My dad said, my dad's a GP. He said, you haven't left the house in 2 months. Come on, we're going to work. I had to pack a breast pump with me into a cooler bag, leave the baba with my mother, get into the car and go to work. And it was just because he felt it's the beginning. But
he gave you 2 whole months.
Yes.
He didn't tell you. I recently spoke to someone and she lost her child. Her child was 3 years old and she lost her child. And she went to someone who told her that they must carry on like everything is normal. She must go back to work and she must send the older siblings to school. People need time, so you have that full 2 months to grieve and to do your thing.
Your body doesn't return to normal after having a baby, and you really need to give it that time, and you need to give it that care. Now, Ummi A says that she's from Joburg. It does not matter where you are. You can have an online consultation. I come up to Johannesburg.
Wonderful?
Zaahida does online programs.
Everybody does online stuff.
I mean, social media, I think we're using it to our advantage. Maybe it's a new generation thing.
Alhamdulillah, I love being in this generation.
But we can still help people, and that's the reason for us having the live. Yeah. So what would you suggest?
Okay, first before we go there, please let's answer for our breastfeeding ladies, because they asked about what they should be. They said what should they be eating for breast. First of all, should they be the fasting thing while breastfeeding, and what should you eat?
So the fast is not that long because we're sort of like in autumn.
But then the fluids.
So you just make sure you have enough fluids at Sehri and at Iftar. Try to have a liter each or throughout the evening. And then if you feel you are low on breast milk, eat more dates because it would improve the quality of breast milk as well. This is not for someone who's trying to lose weight. We're just talking about
But when you're breastfeeding, you
moms.
shouldn't be worrying too much about
Yeah, your calorie doesn't really change that much. You don't have to fast also. But make sure that you're taking supplements to improve breast milk.
So what would you take?
Fenugreek, it
Right.
works brilliantly. Take
Can I
something
get that from
to
you?
calm your mind. You can get it from us, or we can order it from you. You can get it from a health store.
Okay.
Take something to calm down. An antidepressant makes you feel calm, but you're not actually calm. So take something like valerian or passiflora. We have a very good product called MyoCalm that just makes you feel more relaxed. In fact, it can be given to children as well. So we have one in a child's dose. If you are an anxious mother, your baba is not going to feel from you.
Please, guys, you need to know this. Your baby can feel everything you feel. They are so good. Do you know that your heartbeat entrains with your baby's heartbeat? Your baby. So if your heart is racing and you're feeling anxious, what do you think the baby is picking up on? That's such an important one.
It's a scary feeling to feel your heartbeat that way. And I think that's something as a new breastfeeding mom, it's hard to learn these things. You don't know what's going on. People don't tell you properly. You're not supposed to feel your boobs filling up with milk. It's actually supposed to be when the baby is drinking from you. You
Not
have
supposed
a
to feel
feeling.
that.
No.
Not supposed to feel that.
So that was you just filling up because you missed a feed. But when it feels like there's no milk inside and baby is trying to drink, give the baby time. You be calm. Relax your mind. Relax your body, and then you'll feel the letdown reflex. It's a pulling sensation in the breast tissue towards the nipple, and that is actually you making milk, and the baby is getting the better quality milk from the hind of the
fresh.
breast. Yes, it's a thicker, richer quality of milk. So just be patient. It was very difficult for me to breastfeed my second baby, but I was determined because I didn't manage with the first baby. And it was a prem baby, which made it even more difficult. But I had by then completed all of my studies, so I knew that mentally, if I could change the way I'm looking at the situation, I'll be able to breastfeed. And we did it, took it for 2 full years.
Raisa, I had to have emergency surgeries 2 weeks after my second baby was born, and I didn't see him for 2 full weeks. I was just pumping and dumping because the milk was full of medication. So I didn't see him for 2 weeks, which was torture. But I didn't see him for 2 full weeks. Everybody told me he wouldn't come back to the breast. The first time he latched again, it took me about 2 weeks to get my full milk supply back, but he came back completely. It's doable. Like, don't get locked into what people tell you. Okay?
Yeah, don't. In the top-up stories about parents.
You don't need a top-up.
So here we are talking about not eating like foods that contain GMOs, trying to
And you're
eat
giving them
organic,
GMO.
and then we're giving our babies formula. And even so, people ask me, do you do shakes? I don't do shakes in my eating plans at all because they are processed. Unless I know it is literally powdered fruit and vegetable, then I might give it to you. But otherwise, I wouldn't because it's a processed food.
Look, we're not judging anybody's, being a mother
Yes.
is hard. So if something is working for you, alhamdulillah, go with that. Your well-being, your mental well-being, I always say your mental well-being is more important than anything else. So whatever you need to be or need to do in order to be in a good mental and emotional space, that's the most important.
And
Like I
if
said,
it
baby
means-
picks up on
yeah,
that.
if it means doing the top up to keep your mental
Then
sanity,
that's okay, but we're just offering you
then
perspectives.
that's how you're managing
We're
it.
just offering you perspectives. Every mom is doing their best, and high fives to all of you because it's not easy. She says, how many fenugreek capsules? Akira says, how many fenugreek capsules should we be taking?
Take 2 at
When
a
is
time.
the best time to take it?
So in the morning, so if you're fasting, you do Sehri
Sehri
and
and
Iftar, and do a double dose now because you are. Fenugreek is methi, by the way, so it smells like methi when you open the capsule as well. But if you can't find a good quality, then just give us a call and we'll order you a good brand. So you do get alternate medicines which you can buy over the counter and functional medicines that you can sort of buy over the counter. But the problem is the quality of the ingredients. Like we're saying, it must be non-GMO. It must try and have organic ingredients. So that's why we're saying don't just take any probiotic when you have a gut issue, and look for the right time and opportunity, and your doctor or your therapist will be able to tell you when is that right time and opportunity. Probiotics is probably the least prescribed thing in my practice because I always look for why does this patient need to treat their gut, what's lacking, and then treat the what's lacking.
Okay, all right.
How can I make an appointment with both of you lovely ladies? Zaahida, you can go first.
Pop me an email and inshallah I'll get to you soon. Things are a bit hectic at the
What's
moment.
your email address?
It's support@liveinspired.co.za. But I will be releasing more online DIY kind of stuff. So there'll be lots more because I'm a bit backed up at the moment. So I will be very, very soon, inshallah, in the next couple of weeks, be releasing online training and so on, where I'm going to give you tips on how to deal with your anxiety.
So I know someone who's doing one of your online courses, and I can see their benefits on a level that I didn't expect to see from them. So that's great. And I think don't feel like there's no hope, because
there's always hope. You know what I always say?
Yeah.
There's only no hope when you're 6 feet under. If you're still alive, if you still have a heartbeat, there is hope. I'm telling you, okay, I know Raisa has had her fair share of health issues and things like that. I have had lots of health issues in the past. I've had lots of emotional issues. Everything can be overcome. Everything. And we're in the month of mercy. Ask Allah for that guidance, and He will inspire you to the best possible way for yourself.
And then if you want to come and see me, Umi A, I do come up to Johannesburg to see patients once a month. So the next date will be in a month from now. And you can call us on our landline, 031-2099-319, to get the Johannesburg details. But if you want to see us now, but not physically, you can email us for an online consultation. It's consults@drbakers.co.za.
And guys, I highly recommend, because I will say, as much as I preach it, I live it. I believe in holistic completely. So when I had some physical issues coming up last year and this year, I came to see Dr. Baker, and we worked I worked on the emotional component, and she helped me out with the physical component. There was some, and I'm still taking some of those, the purifier and those kinds of things, and it made a huge difference to me. So, don't underestimate it, and it's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
And you don't have to feel like you don't, like someone sent me a message earlier saying, I want to lose weight, but I don't want to take any medication. So I just asked, do you have any health conditions? The patient said, I'm diabetic, I'm hypertensive, I weigh 120 kilos. There was like 4 different things wrong with this patient. So as much as you're saying you don't want to take medication, maybe you need something more on a functional basis. Maybe you need to teach your pancreas to produce better quality insulin instead of producing heaps of poor quality insulin. Maybe you need to teach your thyroid gland to make its own hormone instead of just taking a hormone. We're not saying leave out your medication. We're saying teach your body to do things on its own. Your medication will work better that way. And you'd have better results. You'll feel better. I mean, we had a conversation about underactive thyroid once, and the amount of patients we see who think they're depressed, but it's a link between the thyroid and the depression. It causes you to feel depressed. So you must do both.
I've told a lot of clients to come see you, because they come see me with all this, and I say, okay, you know what, go get your physical checked, and then come back with the results, and then we'll work with it, because let's see what can be sorted out just through the physical as well, because it makes a huge difference.
So Bilkis Isab says, how do I know that the vitamin D is working? And she's taking my vitamin D drop. So here's a funny story. I, who has my own formula for vitamin D3 liquid, also had a deficiency in vitamin D once upon a time. I was finding that I was forgetting my words. Does it happen to you sometimes? You want to say something, but you just lose it. My memory was
also
poor.
Ramadan, though.
It hasn't happened this Ramadan. My memory was poor. My hair was falling. My nails were looking terrible and brittle. I had extremely dry skin, and I was just fatigued. I was yawning, and it was terrible. So I said, let me go and do my bloods. And I decided to check vitamin D, and it was at 7, which is under the category of severely deficient. And I check most of my patients' vitamin D levels, and most of them are deficient. Maybe it's the climate, maybe it's the atmosphere in South Africa.
I think it also has to do with belief systems here, where we were told from small to stay out of the sun.
That's a good one.
When it get dark.
So I have seen many of my patients benefit from the vitamin D formula that we have. So I decided I'm going to be the guinea pig for my own treatment. So I started taking the D3 liquid every day. And exactly 3 months to the date that I had first checked, I went for my second blood test. And it went from 7 to 59. So I was now optimal. And I had patients who I used to prescribe calciferol to, and their levels weren't really going up that quick. They were going from 7 to 18. And the ideal is between 30 and 80. So you just need a simple blood test to tell you whether your vitamin D has gone up. And when you come in for your follow-up, inshallah, we'll help you to do that.
Yeah, great. And what a difference it can make when your vitamin D is normal. So consult at drbaker.co.za. Is that correct?
So we just go onto the website. All of our contact details are there. Dr. Baker.
How do they get to your website? Link in your bio.
Click on the link in my bio. It will take you to our online store where you can purchase vitamin D. But
if you're really struggling, send a DM.
Yeah, just send a DM. We have people responding to DMs.
comment on one
Either
of the posts.
I will or one of our staff will.
So yeah, Faye Cassim says, I'm taking calciferol on a weekly basis, still feel down and weak. So you need to get the levels tested again to see where is it at.
Yes, definitely. I've had patients taking calciferol for years with small change. That
shouldn't be happening. There's so many things on the market except calciferol. It's 2019, guys. There's loads of stuff on the market.
And maybe it's too much for the body at one time. Or maybe you just don't absorb vitamin D that well. So, in which case you need to change the type of vitamin D or look at why you're not absorbing it. And the funny thing is that happens a lot. Why does your body not want to respond to a certain type of treatment? That could so well be related to your mental health and the state of your mental being. So you have to, I don't know, I keep a tissue box on my table because most of my patients end up crying.
I have to tell you, I have been working with a client and she was so depleted when she came to me. And honestly, so I shipped her off to doing her vitals and all of that, and she's been taking care of it. But in a short space of time, the amount of trauma that we released and the amount of emotional release that happened, literally, the sounds of it, but you could see her face changing.
Yeah,
you could literally see her face changing because once that trauma was dealt with and those emotions were dealt with, that made so in that instance, just the physical alone was not sorting it out for her.
Yeah. So it doesn't have to be one thing. You can combine your treatments. We combine. I'm like whatever my body needs. Whatever is it an emotional component? Is it a physical component? You have to take care. You have to take care of it. And don't just think of using one type of treatment. I often get the question is, I've been to other homeopaths, but my skin didn't get any better. If I come to you, will it make a difference? So I like to use a combination of treatments. Sometimes I use Ayurvedic medicine, sometimes I use herbal medicine, homeopathy, functional medicine, nutritional medicine. What the patient needs at that moment in time is what we're going to give them. So if they need counseling, that's where I like to bring in someone who's a life coach because they can sit with you and deal with the emotion. They can help you deal with that emotion. So don't just fixate yourself on one type of treatment method. But also,
Anissa said she had calciferol and she broke out with allergy. Would the drops work better for her?
Calciferol is 50,000 international units of vitamin D at one go, so it's a whole lot at one time.
Yeah, maybe for some people, maybe they just can't
absorb it all. So you just sort of pee out the extra vitamins that you have. So you should try the liquid. You could do between 1 and 5 drops. Start with a small dose, 2 drops every day.
I think the main reason they prescribe calciferol is because people are not consistent with taking vitamins, and they give it because patients are lazy. So as a patient, you have to be more savvy. If you want your health to be better, you're going to have to take it.
If something works for you, you will take it. I'm also bad with medication, but I know what works for me, so I take it every day. So people who suffer with low blood pressure, you cannot think, function, you're dizzy, you're tired, you're yawning, you miss words and you're speaking, you forget things just because your blood pressure is low. And nobody has told us in the so many years of practicing, nobody ever told us there's a treatment for low blood pressure, but there is. And once you take the treatment for low blood pressure, you won't want to stop it because you feel so good when your blood pressure is normal. So if your spouse keeps saying to you, I'm always tired, or the wife is always saying to the husband, I'm tired, the husband is going to get annoyed with you and you're going to start fighting. But if you simply have your blood pressure or your iron or your vitamin D or the nutrients checked in your body and treat what's missing, your energy will come back and you can reconnect with your spouse. And I think that was a question we had somewhere as well.
And the thing is also, when you feel better, you respond better. You're going to be nicer to your husband. You're going to be nicer to your kids.
You change the dynamics.
And then they see, oh, mommy and my wife, they're being nicer to me. I want to be nicer to them. So literally, if you don't want to take time to take care of yourself, think about what it's costing you in your relationships and in your family life. When you start taking care of yourself, you're a better human being to be around because you're not exhausted, you're not drained, and you're not resentful because many of us are tired and exhausted and drained, and we are resentful of our family because we feel like they are putting all the pressure on us.
I'm experiencing this and only recently discovered blood pressure. Wow. There we go. We didn't have to ask you, we told you.
The point is, whatever your situation, it can be dealt with.
Yes, it can be. There's never not a reason for something happening in your body.
I think let's leave it as that. We're going to be doing a follow-up. We're going to be doing another follow-up live. We'll just put the dates up once we're available, but probably in about a week or two's time. Definitely. Another one in Ramadan we're going to be doing. So if there's any other questions that come up for you, keep them.
I think you can still respond to that question. There's a post up on my page that
the question sticker.
The question sticker. sticker. So send the questions through. I'll save them for next week.
Yeah.
And then we'll go through those first.
And even if you want to send the questions through, we'll save them for next
we'll
time.
save them
And
for
we'll do the
next
best we
time.
can in terms of that. But thank you so much everyone for joining. And thank you for participating. It was such a lovely,
It was
nice,
very interactive.
We love chatting to all of you, answering the questions.
And now we
hearing
want
the
you to
feedback.
think about the healthy iftar that you're going to
Yes.
have. My live is telling me I only have 2
Oh, it
minutes
cuts you off,
remaining.
she man.
Okay, so Jazakallah for listening. We hope to see you inshallah next week. Please send through those questions.
So let's give them one takeaway. What could they do? One takeaway in terms of what they need to eat and what they could do emotionally. So you go
Okay,
first.
so there is actually a free Ramadan booklet on my website that you can download. So click the link in my bio at Dr. Rae Baker. Click the link in my bio and you go to, just type in Ramadan and it'll give you a package that costs 0 rands and it says click here to download. You can download it for free. It tells you what to eat for Sehri and iftar.
Make a dua for us also, by the way, if you're
please
using
do.
any of this advice. So what you can do emotionally, Ramadan is a really good time. So think about it from a physical perspective. We know that the body heals at a deeper level because it doesn't need to be processing food. It can heal deeper issues. So there's a very big healing property to Ramadan physically. Emotionally as well, you can use this to your advantage. So there may be old wounds that you have from a year ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. You can utilize this time on your musalla when you're reading Quran, when you're making dua. Bring that up for yourself. Journal about it. Write down, this is what I experienced, this is what I felt, this is the emotions. Because you might be snapping at everybody around you, but what's really coming up is it's all those repressed emotions from the past. So bring it up, journal about it, interact with it, and then even mine is going to cut off soon. And ask Allah, make that dua, ask Allah to help me process in the best possible way. You can see lots of information on Dr. Baker's page, on my page, to help you with tips on how to process. You'll get a lot of information on my page as well, how to process information. But it's a lovely time to both physically and emotionally heal yourself.
Definitely.
Assalamu
So
alaikum,
take care.
everyone.
Assalamu alaikum.
It cuts off after an hour, I think.
Let's see.